Hello, MouseHunt. Welcome to Feedback Friday. It is June. I think it's June, and I think it's the 13th today. Hello, everybody. Hopefully, everybody in the chat is doing well. Look at that. I have to sound my horn. Let's take care of that right away. That's the first order of business. I just want to make sure there was no confusion around the loading bar getting things started here. But thank you. Thank you in the chat for pointing out it was a little bit misaligned. We can't have that. That's just no good. Hello, everybody. Gabriella, Nid, welcome on in. Fleming, getting some number guesses out of the way quickly. Well, we will get to trivia, I think, sooner than later this week. So there's a bit of a change of plans. Jacob was originally going to do an art stream, but he's a little under the weather. Jacob is ill today, so I thought, well, rather than cancel Feedback Friday, I'd still pop on, say hello to everybody, maybe get a little bit of feedback, see if there's any question or answers we can dig into. So by all means, you can put on your thinking caps if there's any little questions we can field from the chat. But probably a short and sweet Feedback Friday today. Just thought I'd say hello, maybe a few reminders here and there, that sort of thing. Lisa, welcome on in. Does anyone else sing along, or is it just you? I'm glad to hear you have memorized the lyrics to the intro song there. I think I have as well. I'm in that camp. Tarako didn't notice that loading bar at the front, eh? It's alive. It's alive. KDM, welcome on in. Gabriella, welcome in. Michelle, nice to see you. Lady Nutsy, there you go, right on cue. How about some coffee? I only have about a quarter cup left. That's dangerously low. Peter, welcome in as well. Jason, nice to see you. YX asking, how likely is little Jill to return next year? Little Jill hasn't even left, and we're wondering when she'll return. She must be a beloved character then, if we're already looking forward to her next visit. I can't say with any certainty. It's a little unpredictable. Jack certainly hasn't visited every single year. So I wouldn't count on her visiting, but it's probable, but not improbable. Somewhere in between, I don't know. Potato, welcome. Thank you for the well wishes for Jacob there. I think he's on the mend. I hope so anyway, but he's been fighting something off the last day or two, so better to rest up, and hopefully he's feeling better today. Questions, answers, reward the choir. Yeah, we have a little trivia question today as well, but how has my Jack and Jill been? So far, so good. I did an Emmental run right at the start. Got quite a few of the steel barrels. That's a good reminder too. You do get more of the large barrels hunting some of the more difficult dragons in the Draconic Depths. So, as the event's starting to wind down, that might be a good reminder to squeeze in a few hunts with Emmental if you want to make the most of those bonus drops. Last week, here's a few summary notes of Big Jack and Little Jill, and so that might be a good segue to remind everybody that the event is coming to an end on June 17th. Again, this is what I shared last week. So that is Tuesday. Some point during Tuesday, the event will come to a closure as well. We've been keeping our ear to the ground for feedback, suggestions, that sort of thing for next year. But what stays and what goes? Please consult the news post in the game as well. The most recent news post has a lot of the info about what is temporary, what's part of the Jack and Jill event, and what's permanent additions to the Draconic Depths as well. So please keep in mind the incinerate option for your cart. That is permanent. And the things that are in the general store as well, the new base, the mega cheese pack, and the ability to purchase the heart for ashes, that's all permanent. That's not going anywhere come June 17th. So you'll still be able to make ashes. A good reminder too that we shared last week is as you catch the Emperor, the number of slivers that the Emperor drops keeps increasing up into the max. It maxes out at 2,500 catches, which is a diamond crown. That really ups your ash production as well. So it's a little bit of a long haul. It's a long-term goal, but the longer you stay in the area, the easier it gets to make ashes, and your ability to create hearts increases over time. So that's a good reminder as well. How about a water bottle check? I don't have a water bottle today. I probably should though. I have coffee, but no water. I guess I'm just interested in dehydrating without hydrating. Caleb, any plans to celebrate when someone finally crowns the leprechaun? Thinking back to last week's trivia question, the leprechaun remains the only mouse in the game that has yet to have a bronze crown earned by any hunter throughout the whole game. That does sound like an occasion to celebrate. You know, it's been 17, 18 years in the making or so before somebody finally gets a 10th capture of that mouse. Here I am with just one catch, although I've missed the leprechaun over 10 times. If all those, can I just convert those all into catches, it'd be in pretty good shape. But that does sound fun, Caleb. We'll have to keep an eye. See when that ticks from 9 up to 10. Might be the next giveaway, might be the most likely time for it to happen, but who knows? The prize mice are always on the loose. You can catch them at any time. Way asking what's coming after Jack and Jill. Well, the team has been working on the Folklore Forest finale part 1. And here's a reminder of what I shared last week as well. Things are coming along pretty well. We're getting pretty close to having our kind of beta version where we start doing a lot more play testing. Right now we kind of have an alpha version established. We have the heads-up display. A lot of the UI work is in a good place. Now we're kind of adding all the extra polish, but you know, all the buttons work. Everything's functionally there. We can start playing through the area. I believe, what did I say last week? Were we 2/3 of the way through? Yes, 2/3 of the way through. So we've made a little bit of progress this week as well. We have the goal set for ourselves, I think 2 weeks from now, to try to have that beta version of it. So you can look forward to that coming sometime after Jack and Jill, not literally when the event comes to an end, because we're still working on it, but that's what's planned to be next. Lethal Clips, are there any plans to reduce the cost of the Dragon Heart in Ashes? 900,000 takes quite a bit. It is a long-term goal. You know, there are some things in MouseHunt. Some areas are shorter than others, but generally it's a game where your progress is measured in months, if not years. And so, you know, do keep in mind that as you earn King's Crowns for the Dragon Emperor, your ability to make ashes keeps going up and up and up until eventually every time you capture the Emperor, you're getting thousands of ashes. Because the number of slivers that the Emperor drops continues to increase all the way up to 2,500. You can be using either the opal base or that new ash base that was added as well to double your sliver drop. So I can imagine you're getting over 5,000 ashes every time you capture the Dragon Emperor. So you can see how that kind of adds up to 900,000 a lot quicker the more time you put into the area. You can almost think of it like a permanent upgrade. Something similar to the original Folklore Force 3. You know, you're earning upgrades at the table of contents, the quill and what have you. Well, this area's version of a permanent upgrade is every time you capture the Emperor, you increase your ability to create loot, which means you can make more embers, which means you can make more ashes, and just everything starts to snowball a little bit. But it does take some time. You know, I think it would be the type of goal that you'd work on throughout event seasons. And you can even think back, there's probably been many goals as well. Sometimes it's nice. I think it's something players look forward to during event season. If you think, say, the floating islands, you need quite a few jewels to complete all the traps there, which, you know, if I can recall there being, you know, a little bit of a friction about how long of a goal that was to build some of those above and beyond traps as well. But, you know, event season comes along as well. That means you have some fun goals to work on. It means you're interested in some of those resources you can pick up from events as well. And so over the years, it's definitely a bit of a symbiotic relationship between some of the permanent areas in the game. You know, they're not going anywhere. You can take your time on them. And some of the temporary events. The permanent areas add a lot of interest, a lot of long-term goals that hunters are interested in. And then the events add nice short-term goals. The events all have a beginning, middle, and an end. You pick them up, you complete them, and you put them back down. But then the reward is often then something you can take to another area in the game. And kind of over the years noticed has a fun cadence to it, where those two types of releases kind of help each other out and make each more fun. Wyke's asking, Dave, will part 2 of Folklore Forest finale be released next year instead? We'll see. No specific timelines to share quite yet. We might not know things a little bit more certainty until we're at least some way into play testing part 1. But it is planned to be a 2-part release. And they are a little bit connected, so we wouldn't want too much time between them. That's the goal anyway, but we're still working out some details. Doesn't rise every catch, but it's usually close. It should be. The number of slivers that the Dragonhide Emperor drops is equal to the number of times you've captured the Emperor. So on your very first catch, you only get 1 sliver, but on your 1000th, you get 1,000 sliver. Here's the base, can double it. You can be using the Dragon's Might Aura as well. That will add some random slivers when some drops. So you can keep upping the number of slivers you get. How are you asking about how the scoreboard works with banished players? Yeah, I mean, I guess they would eventually be eclipsed, but they don't technically get removed with any sort of schedule per se. But eventually they'll get eclipsed, and it's tough too because not all account restrictions are permanent. Some of them are temporary. You know, sometimes somebody breaks a rule in the game, and banishment means you're no longer allowed to interact with other players. So you can't use the marketplace, you can't send supplies, you can't write on cork boards, etc. You know, sometimes your account progress maybe gets reset a little bit or gets set back, and then you, as a warning, you get you know, that banishment restriction put on your account for a few months, something like that, and then it's lifted later. So, you know, it doesn't always make sense to remove either. Jan asking, is there any mini event that will help with new players? Probably not specifically a mini event, but certainly as event season approaches, you can look forward to Halloween as well. There's something for everybody in Halloween and the Great Winter Hunt, Lunar New Year as well, double, triple loot drops. The Spring Egg Hunt wasn't too long ago, so maybe the main kind of event season, what we call it, something where there's a little bit more something for everybody. But mini events that are area centric, you know, by very definition, usually involve or just have something for players of that title or higher. Trevor asking if resources from Folklore Forest or Forward Farm and the Prologue Pond, are they going to be needed? Hey, look, the FF acronym works in many ways. Sometimes acronyms can backfire, but will resources be needed for new areas, or they have their own resources? Probably a blend of the two in some capacity, in one way or another, but maybe you have to wait and see. How likely will there be new ranks after Fabled? Well, I certainly hope the game makes it to the point where it would make sense to kind of expand and add more ranks in areas past Fabled, but you know, we'll see. I definitely hope we get to that point, but we might have a ways to go before there are enough players of that rank. Necrid, any chance you'll buff the heart drop rates by 200%? Probably not, no, but you can think of it this way as well. The longer you stay in the area, right, the more effectively you can make ashes, the more ashes you can produce. And even if you get a heart to drop, if you get lucky and the mythical heart drops, you're still producing ashes as you go as well. So, you know, every once in a while, it's like you get to make an extra heart. And by the time you have a diamond crown for the mythical dragon emperor, the math kind of works out roughly where the amount of time you would normally take to find 2 hearts, you'll find 3. So you can kind of look at it that way. You get kind of a 50% boost to how fast you make hearts if you have a diamond crown for the mythical dragon emperor. So, you know, that's a bit of a long-term goal. Obviously, it's a long-term goal. But if you do diamond crown that mouse, your heart rate will increase by 50%. Might be a fun way of phrasing that a little bit. Could you please release part 2 first? That sounds totally logical to me. What could possibly go wrong? Evan asking about any plans for the next Rift counterpart. No immediate plans, but some rough plans. You know, every once in a while, we review kind of a long-term storyboard, if you will, and kind of plan ahead several releases, several kind of chapters in the game. And, you know, one of those chapters does have Rift on it, dare I say 1 or 2 of them, but no specific timeline of when that will. And when that plan will come to fruition, and you know, sometimes the plan changes by the time we get there as well. We're a little older and wiser. Future us has more information to go on and more player feedback to incorporate. And often that does change the plans. Potato, are the devs done with the Draconic Depths now, or yet planning on any other sizable changes? I think we are done with the depths. Indeed, we have focused our energy on the next areas. So that's kind of it for the Draconic Depths. But of course, event season comes along, and that affects every area in the game as well. Lethal clips, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. How long has Fabled been the final rank? You know, that would have been a fantastic trivia question. That would actually be a little bit tricky for me to even look up. When did the very first hunter reach the title of Fabled? I couldn't tell you. Sparrow has always wondered if the king has some traps that hunters don't have. At least my headcanon, he must, right? Must be always on the cutting edge of hunting technology. Often some descriptions of various traps and items. Talk about the king kitting players out or making something available, whether it's a trap skin or some piece of equipment. So there must be something being researched. That's my headcanon anyway. Soda, hello to you as well. Matt, good morning. Hope all is well. Well, thank you so much. Hopefully you are doing well also. Hey, look at that. Time to sound my horn again. We must be about 15 minutes into Feedback Friday. Anyone else measure the passage of time in sounding increments of sounding the horn? You kind of you start to get a subconscious feeling for when 15 minutes have passed, don't you? Skywalker asking, will there be a mapping event this year? At the moment, there isn't necessarily one planned. We did have the Treasure Map Mega Party last year in November, and we have a whole heap of feedback to review on that as well. So I can't say with certainty whether there'll be another Treasure Map Mega Party, but we did build it in such a way that we could have it return as well. If I recall correctly, a little bit of feedback we logged is that might be better as a short and sweet event. We might even kind of shorten it down to just be 1 week if we were to repeat the map Mega Party. But, again, not to get too far ahead of yourselves. No immediate plans for it anyway. Jail, will it be possible for the new area to not be in the Great Winter Hunt Golems or the Spring Egg Hunt? Maybe you could elaborate on why you have that suggestion, but no, I think that wouldn't be very fun. I think it needs to be included. Otherwise, the Great Winter Hunt would lack a certain sheen. That said, sometimes some of the newer areas, resources might be a little bit trickier to get, but that said, generally speaking with events, we kind of aim for it to be about double or triple kind of the normal amount of loot that you can collect. If you can think of it in kind of a simplified version of that, let's say, I don't know, you go to the meadow just to make things real easy, and cheddar, you can find it as a loot drop. Let's say once every 10 hunts, a mouse drops cheddar, which means you're getting 0.1 cheddar per hunt. While during an event, you might be able to get 0.2 cheddar per hunt or 0.3 cheddar per hunt. If we can use that, if that's maybe a bit of a confusing way to phrase it. But that's kind of the guiding principle of kind of where we try to dial in some of those events. Some are a little bit lower, some are a little higher. Like it's not so much a rule as it is a guide. How likely would it be to have a map of such scale of the Origin of Dragons treasure map for Folklore Forest Finale? Yeah, it depends on what your definition of a map of that scale would be. Certainly something, you can let me know if it's a fun idea, but the Grand Tour brand of map has been something that I think has been well received by hunters, and anytime a region sort of feels complete is definitely a nice time to do a Grand Tour map. So that's probably an idea we'll explore at least, so we can kind of keep her to the ground on feedback on what players think about Grand Tour style maps, but they're a little bit more epic, sizable map, a little bit longer, take you across multiple locations, a lot of teamwork involved. You can kind of divide and conquer amongst your map team. Ever thought of redoing some older equipment such as the spellbook base? Seems opportunity to have a bonus in the School of Sorcery. Eh? Well, I mean, it's very thematically tied to Zugzwang's tower there, but that's kind of a fun idea. It does have a very niche set effect. If I recall correctly, if you arm a spellbook charm with the spellbook base, I think you get a little bit of a bonus, but that might not be the most powerful bonus to utilize nowadays. And I'm trying to scroll up, but the chat's moving a bit here. Now asking, why is the dowsing rod mini game relevant to DD? Apart from one each, I don't see a case. Enter one rod of a particular cave. Don't know if I quite follow. You're just talking about the draconic depths of, there are 3 droids. You can charge up those dowsing rods, and yes, very soon you do get, you don't really need to go into a cavern that only has 1 or 2 rods, but in the beginning it's a little bit more relevant. But it's just kind of a fun little detail. It's kind of an easy win, an easy thing that you can have a little bit of agency over to start the run, and often that's a good way to start your journey. So although it's not particularly challenging, it's a bit intentional that there's sort of an easy thing you can calibrate and get the run started off. Jason was loving that super map event. Will we have other power type specific maps? I don't think power type specific is likely. I mean, never say never. The right idea may surface. The Origin of Dragons map, though, is about hunting dragon mice, and they do have a common power type weakness, but that doesn't necessarily translate well to other power types. So, I mean, probably not. We tend to divide things up more by narrative than, say, mechanic. You know, a physical map, it doesn't have as strong of a theme of like, well, you got to go get the field mouse from the meadow. Okay, remember has a strong physical mouse identity, doesn't it? Not really. So we tend to use more narrative themes than we would, mechanical power type themes, but just draconic. There's overlap there where dragons have their narrative suits their power type very strongly. I'm just letting a map about this big. Yeah. Chris, glad you've been enjoying the event. The loot drops have been extremely useful. Like in the steel barrels there, it's kind of nice. You can be making, it's one of the rare times you can get embers without having to sacrifice loot. No heart, yep, you'll get there someday. It is, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but there are some areas in the game where their progress is measured in months and years. It's sort of even the expectation is they're there. You go through event season as well. And it's, it's the type of area where you look forward to event season to get a little bit of a boost, restock some supplies, and then you head back there, right? And they're permanent areas. They're not going anywhere. But definitely, I think there's kind of two types of hunters where the game can kind of appeal to two styles of play. When you think about events, they start and they end. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They're a little bit like doing a crossword puzzle. You get the newspaper and there's a crossword puzzle in there. You pick up the crossword puzzle and you have all your clues and you fill in all the words on the crossword puzzle. And when you fill the board, right, when you fill in all the blank spots on your crossword puzzle, the puzzle tells you it's complete. It's done. There's nothing else to do here. You can't keep going. So it has a kind of a very strict appointment. It has a defined play session to it. And events often have that. They have an adventure and they have some, maybe some rewards to unlock and earn. If the event lasts for 3 weeks and it takes about 2 weeks to get maybe a collectible trap skin or a base, something like that from the event, it's kind of designed where you put in 2 weeks and you get that, and there's a few little loose ends you can wrap up, but then the event's over in 3 weeks. And it has a defined play session, a beginning, middle, of an end, and you're kind of meant to everyone gets to the end of that journey at the same time. What we call episodic content, new adventures, permanent areas in the game, they're a little bit more sandbox world. You can think of other games out there where they don't have as many rules or restrictions or finite beginning, middle, and end to it. It's just, well, here's a world that exists with a whole bunch of characters and rules and loot and items, and they all interact in certain ways, and go forth and do what you wish with that world or inside of that world. It's sandbox. And so they're not kind of meant to have these beginning, middle, and end of these finite. It's an adventure to show I've explored sort of all the aspects of this. But you kind of, it's a little bit expected, and over the years, it's definitely something MouseHunt has had in it. Of you visit that area for a while, you might not do everything you're looking to do there, and then you move to another area, you work on some other goals, you do an event, you get some supplies, maybe you come back to the area a little bit later. So it's very kind of come and go, if you will. But I can definitely see if you love events, you might be a little bit more the type of player who likes defined play sessions. The crossword puzzle analogy I was making, where you pick it up, you finish it, and you put it down. He's like, okay, I'm done that until the next episode comes out. Whereas other hunters like something more open-ended than that, where it's always morphing and changing over time as well. I think there's a lot of overlap if you like sort of the tradable aspect of tradable economies in games. If you're a hunter who really likes the marketplace component of the game, you probably like those sandbox open kind of episodic content releases. Whereas if you don't really like using the marketplace, you might like events a little bit more, because you start, you finish it, and you put it down. You almost can kind of take a little break from the game and come back when the next release comes out. Sort of waiting for the sequel to come out, experiencing an area like watching a movie a little bit more than existing in the world and seeing what happens. But anyway, that was a long-winded response. What else is going on in the chat here? Mousecorn, is there any timeline or plans for a MouseHunt 4? And well, we have been doing some work on upgrading the game engine as well. As you can imagine, it's quite the undertaking, but not too much news to share quite yet, but it'll be a fun day when we can. Will there be a base in the new area as part of the upgrade for the current Opal refactored bases? So that's a good question as well. That might be it's a little bit early. Oops, that's not the right one. A little bit early to get into reward structure of the Folklore Forest finale, part 1 and part 2. We'll say there's been a base involved in every chapter of the story, so it's probably not a stretch to imagine a base upgrade will be involved at some point. But at what point that will come, it may not be right away. But we'll see. Probably more finite things to share as we get a little bit closer to release. Necrid will Ronza bring back the Chrome Party Bat. Limited edition means limited edition. If you've got that on your bingo card, you can scratch it off. No plans to have limited edition items return ever again. Never say never, but it'd be a whole other decision. At least right now, there are no plans for that. That's what limited edition means. It's sort of a part of the game. They become these collectibles that makes everyone's account just a little bit different based on when you started the game and how often you've been playing the game, concurrently, consecutive years of play, I guess. Which events have you participated in? It's kind of neat. You can look back at all your limited edition items and kind of recall some information. It almost tells a story of like, oh yeah, look, I did this event. And then I didn't. I took a break from the game there, and I don't have those. But then I came back, started playing again, and I have these limited edition items. It tells it's like a rich history to your hunter in that regard. So it kind of adds a neat little character, I think. Potato, have you considered mechanical stops on events to make them a little more balanced between high and low activity? Like limit your total brews for Halloween. We do some projections. If you try to find a good balance of somebody who's a little bit active versus very active, it's tough to always kind of find that balance between the two. But I don't know if we necessarily need to have a restriction on how many hunts are you allowed to take in this event. We do look at, what does it look like on the high end and the low end. Even right now, the kind of hunts per day tends to trend up a little bit during an event. But right now, the average player is taking about 49 hunts per day. And it does tend to hover around 50. Sometimes it'll dip down to 45. Sometimes it'll go up to 60 or something, maybe during an event or at the start of a new area being released to the game. Sometimes we see that go up to 60. But, on average, the average hunter takes about 50 hunts a day. And so we kind of use that as a starting point. And we tend to look, okay, what does 60 and 80 look like? Anything more than 80 starts to be, well, that is a little above and beyond. If you can consistently take more than 80 hunts a day for any stretch of time, well, then that's quite the achievement in of itself. Why X? What advice would you have for someone addicted to playing MouseHunt? Well, I hope addicted would not be the right word. But if that was true by the definition of that word, then you might want to take a little bit of a break. There's balance in life. All good things in moderation would be my suggestion. Then you might want to, maybe take a little bit of a break. Just dial it back a little bit. Fleming, which game engine do you use? Is it a V6, a V8, a V10, a 4-cylinder? We are on the 3rd iteration of the games engine, so and it is showing a little bit of signs of aging a little bit in 2025 from both being built on some older technology. Right? There's obviously, as time passes, new tools and technology come out that aren't always easy to incorporate. I also like, hey, the whole dev team, we're all a little older and wiser, and that's a good thing. It's always good when you look back at things you did many years ago and it's like, I do that a little bit different. Well, you must have learned something by then, so it's, sometimes you gotta, it can be a little damaging to your confidence to, you look back at stuff you did many years ago. And I'm sure it's for any creative discipline, really, anything. You could be a carpenter, an artist, a programmer, it doesn't matter. You look at some work you did many years ago, it's like, ooh, that's a little rough around the edges, isn't it? But ultimately, that's a good sign. Because if you look back at something you did years ago and you're like, yep, still looks good to me, it's like, I don't think you learned anything in over 10 years. That's not particularly a good result. So there's definitely a little bit of love it needs here and there. Tom, 500 plus catches, no heart still. Hang in there, Tom. Hang in there. Remember, the more emperors you catch, it is increasing your ability to make ashes and it does start to snowball. Well, we're playtesting somewhere around the 1,000 mark. Started to see the snowball. You could see it starting to roll downhill a little bit. And certainly by 1,500, 2,000, you know, by the time you get up starting to striking distance of a diamond crown, it's really humming along. You know, the ash economy really starts growing. But again, MouseHunt's often a game, you know, some areas more than others, but it's a game of patience, persistence, and overcoming adversity. You know, it took me, I think, 14 years to capture my first leprechaun. That made it all the more satisfying, you know, and everyone's story is a little bit different. You know, some people get a leprechaun in their first year. Some of them take over a decade to get there. And there's just a few things in the game that have that identity to them. Do you have a restriction on amount of hunts per event, the amount of hours the event runs divided by 5? Fair enough, Fleming. There is an indirect limitation, that's for sure. Time to sound my horn again. We must be a half hour in. That doesn't sound very short and sweet. Must be lots of good questions coming up in the chat here. Addie, your smartwatch notifications have helped you with sounding the horn. Good to hear. Good to hear. It was a little bit of an experiment to see, you know, the Apple Watch app isn't too feature rich. It's a little experiment to see how much use it would get. And I think other smartwatches as well, the notifications will work depending on the make and the model. I mean, right now about 6.5%, 6.5% of players have used or sounded the horn at least once from their Apple Watch in the last week. But on average, they only sound their horn from their watch 3 times a day, which tells me it's not the most frequent place you go to sound your horn, but it's kind of nice to, you know, keep yourself online. I know I'll be doing that. I'll be outside. I'll be doing some yard work or something like that, out and about, and you just see it pop up. And just, I'll keep myself online, you know, depending on what area you're in, how much management your trap's going to need at that moment. Ricky, in the Valor Rift, you notice there's no ability to switch back to the regular bait when you leave. No immediate plans to update the Valor Rift with that. I mean, the string cheese perhaps isn't quite as precious as some other cheese in other areas, but you know, it's certainly a good idea. It might be a case of there's just only so many hours in the day. You know, there's definitely it's both a blessing and can be a bit frustrating where there's more good ideas than we possibly have time to all put in. So prioritization, I think, is often the biggest challenge we face. Well, I'll tell you what, I said this would be short and sweet, and I'm going to make a liar out of myself because here we are a half hour in. We'll get to this week's trivia question. It has a little something to do with the Draconic Depths, which is also a good strategic reminder about how the depths works as well. This might be a strategy a few hunters have missed out on maybe, so it'd be good to fill them in on. But which mouse is strategically important for quickly charging your forges in the Draconic Depths? And we can go a step further. I bet you, yeah, the right answer is flowing in the chat pretty quick. But there is a way you can charge your forges in one hunt in the Draconic Depths. So you can get back in there ASAP, but it will cost you a piece of Emmental. Because it is, the answer's on the screen here. All right, can we pronounce the name of this mouse correctly? Norm's going to hold me to this. Tranquilla Protecticus. Somewhere out there, if Norm's watching, he just laughed at me. Norm, I hope I made you laugh. But yes, Tranquilla is a mouse that is strategically important. If you arm Emmental while you're outside the caverns and you're charging up your dowsing rods, you're in the forges phase of the Draconic Depths. If you arm Emmental, you will encounter Tranquilla, which isn't particularly challenging of a catch. If you turn on your condensed creativity, it will double your forge progress and you can charge your forges in one hunt. Bonus points, if you've got some bait keep charms, maybe collecting some dust in your inventory and you don't have other plans for them, it's a mighty fine time to use a bait keep charm as well. And you may have a 50% chance of saving that piece of Emmental. Feels pretty good as well. But who had the answer first? Nicholas was first in the chat with Tranquilla. I'll put the answer, or this link, in the chat as well so you can click it easier. If I can find where that is, there we go. I think Larry has some condensed creativity there if you click that reward link. Piece of Emmental and condensed creativity. Fleming, you are right indeed. That is a way you can charge up your forges in one single hunt. Oh, I was saying, please paste the link. I was slow, but I got to it. I get caught up on chat a bit here. Need 5 condensed creativity. You know, Wyatt's, thank you for not pulling the normal joke. That makes me do a quick double take of thinking Larry's gift is something we didn't think it was. Zapke, though, says thank you for the 5 hearts. There you go. Zapke couldn't resist. Now, rest assured, I don't think Larry has any hearts to give out. He has a curated list of gift items. And my coffee is coming to an end. That might mean Feedback Friday can also come to an end momentarily as well. Like I said, just kind of a short and sweet one this week. Want to pop on, say hello to everybody. Had a lot of good feedback and questions in the chat as well. That was great. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Larry's friendly, but not that friendly, says Chris. It's a fairly friendly night. Well, Hunters, once again, thank you for joining me this week. Hopefully Jacob is feeling a little bit better. Don't know what the plan will be next week. Maybe Jacob will want to do an art stream as he was ill today and missed out his turn for Feedback Friday. He might be itching for his turn for an art stream next week. So I don't know. We'll see. I'll probably touch base with him Monday, assuming he's back up on his feet. Hopefully he's feeling a little bit better by the end of the day. Maybe he can enjoy his weekend that way a little bit as well. It's never fun to be sick over the weekend, but hopefully he's right as rain again come Monday. I'll touch base with him. We'll see what the plan is next week. It'll likely be one of the two of us. So one of us will see you then. Thanks for joining me, Hunters. Have a fantastic weekend and happy hunting.
2.
You're a trap. Don't seem to mind it. You attract me. I'm a mouse, you're a cat. I don't seem to mind it. Soft and furry. Oh, and just when I think I'm safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Just when you think you're safe, snap. I come back. You don't seem to mind it, but I'm a fool. Broke my back.
We're back. Welcome to Feedback Friday, part 2 for June 13, 2025. Jacob, I wish I saw your message a little bit sooner. Jacob says he's feeling a little bit better. And look at that, he's even watching Feedback Friday. Hello, Jacob, if you're still watching as well. But we can get the word out as well, because Jacob gave me a very friendly reminder that we do actually have a company get-together next Friday. So there will not be a Feedback Friday next Friday. We'll have to cancel that one. And that's something we've started to do really ever since remote work has been full-time, as well as kind of as lockdown. Feels like a lifetime ago as well, but as kind of COVID restrictions lifted a little bit, we do make an effort 3-4 times a year, something like that, to have a company get together so we can see all each other's faces once again, kind of chat in person. And that is planned for next Friday, which hopefully we have some nice weather as well. Summer's starting to kick up here. So you can spread the word. There won't be a Feedback Friday next week. Jacob, thank you for reminding me of that. It'll be 2 weeks from now where we see everybody again. So have a great weekend. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
2.
You're a trap. Don't seem to mind it. You attract me. I'm a mouse, you're a cat. I don't seem to mind it. Soft and furry. Oh, and just when I think I'm safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Just when you think you're safe, snap. I come back. You don't seem to mind it, but I'm a fool. Broke my back. You don't seem to mind it, 'cause you're so cruel. And just when I think I'm safe, snap. turns out I'm never safe. Snap,